All right, we're going to get started. Don't forget, open up your 1 Million Cups app. Make sure you check in. You can also leave awesome feedback afterwards, after each presenter. My name is Luke, along with these other amazing community organizers of Kauffman 1 Million Cups. We appreciate you guys coming this morning. Who's here for the first time? Raise your hand. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. So if you don't know how it works, 1 Million Cups is a community organization where we let two different businesses, startups, entrepreneurs present their company. They get 6 minutes, and then we open it up to the expert panel, and then we open it up to the crowd for questions. With that being said, let's have the expert panel introduce yourselves.
My name's Clint Corver. I'm the co-founder, along with Miriam Rivera, of Ulu Ventures. We're a seed stage Silicon Valley venture firm. We're here actually with the Kauffman Fellows program, which was it's a training program for venture capitalists that was initially created by the Kauffman Foundation. So delighted to be here, first time in Kansas City, and thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Miriam Rivera, also of Ulu Ventures. Sorry you get two for the price of one today. But we are delighted to be here. In terms of background, in addition to doing venture capital, before that we were actually entrepreneurs. So we did a startup together, and also after that I did Google, which was a small company when I joined it, about 167 people, and took it to about 15,000 people worldwide, and $10 billion of revenue. And we're excited to learn more about what you're doing here. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you for coming. All right, with that being said, we're going to open it to Quentin with Dog Park KC. Let's hear it for Quentin.
Test. Okay. I was told to definitely make sure this was on. All right, and the timer's going. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Good, awesome. All right, thank you all for coming out this morning. My name is Quentin. I'm a co-founder of Dog Park Kansas City, along with my wife, Ellie, who's here in the front with our tiniest member, Mr. Gomez. And we're gonna thank you for having us here today, and I'm going to jump right into it, and let's go and get started. I'm going to start off by showing you kind of this picture. It's a shameless photograph of my wife and I's ridiculously adorable children. Right, so we're those kind of people. These are our kids. On the far left, you have Joey. She's a Rottweiler Shepherd mix. Gomez in the middle, he's a mini Australian Shepherd Poodle mix, and he's 4 pounds. And then on the far right, you have Kanga. So these are our kids. These are who are excited to see us when we get home, and this is part of our life. This is Ellie and I. This is what we do all day. We are regular business professionals in certain aspects of our lives. We work an 8 to 5 schedule. Ellie's a veterinary technician here in Kansas City, and I work in IT. And like I said, this is what we spend most of our day doing during the work week. And this is what our dogs do. So as you can see, this is probably a picture that is familiar to other dog owners, either yourselves or people that you know. While we're stuck at work all day, they are pretty bored and gaining a lot of energy. So that brings us to what I like to call our after-work decision slide. So right now, in the Kansas City area, if you own a dog, when you get off of work, you essentially have a decision to make. On one half of the decision, when you get home, your dog has a lot of energy, you can go and take them out for a walk, take them for a jog, take them to the park, and have them let some of that energy out. Or you can take the tempting road that is to go out with your friends or go out with your family and get a drink or go to the movies, do something in the entertainment venue space. But right now, there isn't something that serves both of those purposes equally as an option for Kansas Cityans. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that or, we're going to make that an and. That's very subtle. You got it? All right. So we want to make it so when you get off of work and your dog is excited to see you, you can go grab your dog and you can go get a beer with your friends and have a place to exercise your dog and socialize your dog. So that brings us back here to the front, right? This is where we started. So now we're going to get into more of the information about the business and the concept and how it works. So we got this cool graphic, bam. This is the perspective area for our space. It's actually a 6,000 square foot indoor climate controlled facility. In this current plan, we have about half of it dedicated for the off-leash park itself. And as you can see on the other side, there's the cafe and the bar space, areas for large and small dog breed boarding, reception, restrooms, seating for the cafe, and a work bar area. There's a little bit different view down here. And the work bar is set up so you can see out into the park while you're on your laptop or doing whatever you happen to be doing while your dog is socializing, or maybe you're out in the park with your dog. So now you're thinking, that sounds awesome. How do you make money? I want to preface this by saying these prices are not set in stone. This is kind of where we're at now. There's a lot of science behind these numbers. But basically what we have is it's $10 for a day pass, and that will include in and out privileges to the park during the operating hours of the day that you purchased it. The other options on here that we have are a monthly membership and an annual membership, $40 and $400 respectively. And membership gets you a couple additional benefits: unlimited use of the park for up to 2 dogs in the same family, access to special member-only events, classes, and activities, and then discounts on our boarding services. So lastly, I got a minute and a half here. I'm going to go over with you guys kind of where we were, what we're up to now, and where we hope to go. So March of this year, we kind of took this idea that had been ruminating in our heads that we talk about at night when we were laying in bed or with people over coffee, and we made a website and we made social media and we kind of launched it out into the internet to get some feedback on what people even thought about this idea. We moved a little bit further on that in April, and we launched a community engagement survey. And we had an amazing response rate on that, more so than we ever expected. So to anybody in this room or anybody you know who took that or shared that, thank you. That really gave us a good direction on how to build our offerings to what the community wants versus what we think the community wants. In June, we launched a Kickstarter and got some awesome media coverage. Casey SourceLink, thanks Kyle, wherever you're at, and some other folks. In July, we successfully funded that Kickstarter and ended it, and had some more media coverage, and now we're to what I like to call this analysis phase, which is very ambiguously named. But we basically gave ourselves from mid-July through the end of November to look at all these numbers we put together, look at all these projections that we have, look at all of the research we've done on permits and liquor licensing and all the red tape, and figure out, is this a viable business venture, right? We've done all the work, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So should we pull the trigger on this business? And we're here today. We've got the best entrepreneurial minds in the country. Sorry to people who are from out of town, but we tend to think like that in Kansas City. But we got you, so that makes it all encompassing. And you know, we want to make some mentor partnerships and gain hopefully some shepherds to help us look over this and make a decision on whether this is good for us and whether it's good for Kansas City. So that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
So we have 2 dogs in my family, so this is actually something I think sounds like a really interesting idea. One of the questions that I have is, from the description, it sounds like most of this is kind of evening time, but I'm curious, would you offer doggy daycare so that the dogs aren't bored during the day? You know, and also, second question is, as a family with kids, the other thing I have to do is either help them with homework and cook dinner and get them through the bath time. So I'm wondering, would you have food for like kids, and you know, they can hang out together too, because that's a big part of the evening for us.
Absolutely, great questions. So on the daycare front, the way we designed everything was to be a multi-phased launch. The idea was not biting off more than we could chew at the beginning. So in this first phase that I talked about, the idea would be to have the off-leash park and have the bar and cafe and the boarding. And then we actually have first right of refusal on an area that would be connected to the space that we're looking at right now, that in a second phase we'd really like to do daycare. And daycare is definitely a very profitable option for us from a projection standpoint. It's just something where when we looked at what do we want to do first, this is where we started. But and food, same answer, multi-phased. So in the doing beverages at first, and then hopefully moving into having food offerings.
All right, Quentin, so lots of passion here, clearly solving a problem that you know and deeply understand. So, you're definitely, that's a great positive. The one challenge I sometimes see for people that they kind of get like sort of, I guess, so excited about the problem they're solving that you think more about how you're solving it than what customers need. So kudos to you on the engagement survey and the Kickstarter and so forth, and being really systematic about understanding your customers. So I'm curious, in particular, on the Kickstarter. So what were you selling people, and give us a little bit of what you found out and what the results were.
Absolutely. So with the Kickstarter, we kind of launched it. We had a couple goals in mind. We had no intention of funding the entire project. It was something to do some marketing, to get a little presence out and advertise it, to get feedback from people, because there's a frequently asked questions section that we actually got a lot of good feedback on. And there's another key point I can't remember right now.
What were people buying?
So they were buying pre-orderable discounted memberships, mentions on the website, dedicated wall where we have customers mentioned for different contribution levels. I think that was mostly it. Ellie? What were we selling? No. So yeah, discounted pre-ordered memberships for the most part, and services.
And how much did you raise?
$6,000.
Okay.
So
Great. So I guess my, I'd say my biggest sort of, think about like, what to think about here. What would I be, if I was like an investor in you, what would I be thinking about? It would be the economics on this, right? So you think about it's a physical facility. There's upfront capital to put this all together, and then, how quickly are you going to be able to pay that back, afford the loans on it, that sort of thing. So in my mind, this would be like, it's in the economics that this is going to play out in terms of whether it makes sense or not. Because I think you've got, there's clear customer demand. You've done a nice job understanding that, and now it feels like you're in the point of. So I guess, not asking you to share like lots of details here, but how are you thinking about, call it the economics of this?
all right, so from a profitability standpoint, based on the way we originally wanted to go about financing the business through an SBA loan, we look at ourselves as being profitable really at the end of year one, actually, the way we have numbers slated. So what I can't go into this in the presentation because we just don't have time is really the whole crazy spreadsheet of numbers and profit and loss and projections, and that's really one of the major things I'm hoping to get out of even really this presentation is to find somebody who can help us look over those things. I took some business classes in college in my undergraduate, and I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, but that doesn't mean that I really know confidently how to analyze these things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's actually kind of I think if I interpret it correctly, the question I'm looking to get answered through somebody here.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll delay. There it is. All right. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll get around to you. We got one right there.
Oh, sorry. I don't get to choose, I guess.
Hello, my name is Melissa Saubers, and
Hi,
I own
Melissa.
Cowork Waldo in
Yay!
Waldo.
Yes.
Yay!
Melissa's
Woohoo!
great. She gives us a lot of social media love, so thanks,
Well,
Melissa.
I heard about this idea, and number one, it was going to be in Waldo. I'm like, hello, yay. Number two, I feel like it's sort of a co-working space, a community space for dogs and their owners, which obviously I love that as well. So a couple questions. Where exactly is 7901 Warnell? Like, tell me.
Right. So for those of you that are familiar with the Waldo area or Kansas City, South Kansas City, 7901 is actually where it's across the street from, I think it's Phillips 66 is that gas station right there. There's a car lot right there.
Right.
That used to be an old UMB bank, and underneath that is actually the whole span of the top is the same size on the bottom, and it was where the executive offices were for the bank in the vault, and it's a giant open space.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome. I thought that's where it was, but I was confused. Okay.
So we haven't signed anything. It's definitely the highest contender for a location right now, though.
Okay, cool. I guess maybe that's my only question. I just wanted to say hi.
Cool.
Do the bad dogs go in the vault?
Actually, that's a great question, Luke. And I didn't get to it in here, but we do have a model based on safety. A lot of families have all but had to write off the ability to take their dogs to an off-leash park because of the safety aspect. They're not being monitoring or any kind of policing other than the people to participate, and aggressive dogs, unfortunately, are a thing. So all the dogs that participate in the park will need to go and undergo a mandatory temperament assessment to make sure that the park is a good fit for them and to give that peace of mind back to the owners.
Question in the back here.
Cool. So that answered the first half of my question right there. So that's good to hear as a dog owner. I think it's an awesome idea. The other half of my question would be, how do you keep the facility clean and smelling like a habitable place? I assume it's going to be AstroTurf or something like that, or?
Yeah, again, great question. So that is obviously a challenge. There are parks, business models like this that exist other places in the country, a lot of them in the Pacific Northwest area, and they face that challenge of, you don't want to be working and sending emails in a space that smells terrible. So part of that is, from the get-go when we do construction, absolutely ensuring that we have proper ventilation for the size of the space. The other part of that is the off-leash park area starting out will actually be a rubberized flooring that we can fully sanitize every night with a animal-friendly cleaner. And down the road, we hope to do artificial turf. It's very, very, very expensive to get the specific artificial turf for pets that deals with all of the things that you're talking about. So off the bat, we'll be doing a custom rubberized flooring and then hopefully moving to turf down the road. Yeah.
Toss them hands in the air. Luke and I will come around to you. One in the middle here.
Love the concept.
Thank you.
Like a restaurant, you have fixed capacity. How are you going to manage that?
Right. We don't know yet. So I've been told that it's okay to say I don't know. So fire code and everything like that dictates the capacity for a space. Hopefully, the least of our worries will be the fact that we have too many people. So that's something where when we get to that point, we will cross it. We'll obviously have posted capacity as per code. And, I guess any restaurant owner, how do you deal with having too many people in your space? I guess you just start to ask people to wait. As much as I don't want that problem, that would be a great problem to have, if that makes sense.
Right over here.
Sorry.
Hi there. Really enjoyed your presentation. I had a quick question. So
Yeah.
do you guys have a maximum in terms of size of dog? Or is there can any dog be there? That's sort of my question.
Right. So I think the best way that I would be interpreting to answer that question is that we are really excited about, in our vision, not considering at this current moment in any way or fashion enforcing breed restrictions or size restrictions. We're lucky enough to be looking to do this business in Jackson County, and that's a pretty opinionated subject, breed restrictions, but we really hope to circumvent that by doing the temperament assessment and weeding out any dogs that would have just kind of predestined aggressive temperaments, and making sure that this just might not be the space for them.
So
Does that
I'm going
answer
to
your
play
question?
devil's advocate and ask why, in my opinion, everything should be in Kansas City, Missouri. But why Kansas City, Missouri? Why not a Prairie Village? Why not an Overland Park where maybe some people have a couple extra shekels to toss at something like this?
Right. So there are a couple different answers to that question. One of them is along the lines of breed restriction, which is great. Not necessarily a huge deciding factor for us, but it's a luxury that we have where we've chosen. We're not actually necessarily opposed to Kansas City, Kansas, or any of those areas. A lot of those people, the population density, depending on where you're at, is different, and they have backyards and they have outlets for their dogs versus the Waldo area, which is a more of a dense population. Not as much as Midtown or downtown, but this business model is inspired by a similar one when I lived in Atlanta. That's where I got this idea and have not been able to shake it since. And it was extremely well received in an area very, very, very similar to Waldo. And that's where we own a home, and we're really passionate about the small business community in that area. So that's kind of why we've located where we are in the idea right now.
Up here to your left.
Oh, sorry.
I was curious, because of the way you started about day in the work in the day and play at night. When you did your research, what did you get back, or did you even research this topic of whether it should be a 24/7 kind of opportunity or more restricted hours? Because when I look around Kansas City at different times of the day, I see people recreating as well as working with their dogs at different times of day. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to paint that picture at the beginning because I feel like it's relatable. It's what drove me to use the facility that inspired this, because I was an extremely busy business professional, and when I got off work, I needed to keep working, but I also needed to address my dog's needs. That being said, maybe it's a little too strongly pointed at that direction when I'm talking about it, because we do intend to have the facility open during the day for people who might work from home that want to do work at the park. Granted, you're going to have to take into account there's going to be some noise. We do intend on putting in sound mitigation to keep that at a lower level. But we do intend to be open during the day for families, anybody who works from home. The presentation is angled more at the nightlife aspect. But you're right, there's a lot of people out doing recreational things with their dogs during the day, and we intend to be open for that.
Question in the middle here.
It's a follow-up to the question before. Did you find in any of your research how far people will drive for this park?
There's a lot of people commenting, I live in the Northland, build this up here. So not for this one specifically, we didn't ask that question, and not that it's necessarily the same thing, but we're friends with the folks who are currently trying to do a business model that is a cat cafe, that different worlds, but having to do with animals. And if I were to glean any kind of insight off of what they're doing, is that they've had people drive in from out of state to come participate in their pop-up cat cafe before it even exists. So we've definitely gotten respondents from people all over the general Kansas City area, and then people from out of town saying, I wish this existed where I live. So whether or not it's a strong enough desire for them to come all the way out here, yet to be seen, but good question.
Back here.
Okay, I guess my question is, why food and alcohol at a dog park? I mean, I don't necessarily think when I take my dogs to the dog park, hey, I think I want to go have a beer while I watch my dogs run around. Doesn't that add a lot of regulations and licensing and hoops to jump through to get that started?
I'm glad you added that last part, because all I was going to ask you was why not. So yes, it does add an additional aspect. So the idea is that we're trying to solve a problem, and could we, in a certain way, solve it by having an indoor climate-controlled park that people could go to after hours with their dogs? But yes, but that's just basically an extension of what you already have as an outdoor dog park. And the idea is that we want to make the dog park something for humans too. When you go to a dog park with your dog right now, it's something for your dog. You kind of make awkward conversation with the other people who happen to have dogs, and that's the only reason you're all there together. But this is making the dog park fun for humans too. So we're giving a human aspect to the fact that your dog needs exercise and socialization is the goal. Hopefully that answers your question.
Comment back up here in front. We're switching back to the panelists. I'm just
Okay.
going to come out of left field on you.
Sorry, just one of the questions that was asked I thought was a good one in terms of your fixed capacity. And one idea that came to mind was that I think gyms, yoga studios have to forecast capacity and also try to move use to different times of the day. And so they sometimes have like reservations for like that pre-work time, but then during the day they might have like, mother's coffee. And so they bring the moms that have dropped off kids into the gym or the studio kind of in the post-school beginning of the day, so they kind of distribute their use. So you probably have folks in this community here that have to engage in forecasting like that could help you think through that.
That's an awesome point. We hadn't considered that, but yes, this is very valuable. This is why
Back
we're
here to
right?
your left.
I have
Thank
a question about your survey, and did you talk to the people in the neighborhood? Because certainly this changes the dynamic, and I understand that the dog lovers will love it, but what about the people that live there, and now it changes the dynamic of where they live? Because back to your comment about people talking to each other about their dogs, I mean, you do that at a car wash too, but you don't necessarily want a car wash in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. So the survey was shared publicly. It was shared on our Facebook. We are members of some really active Facebook neighborhood groups for the Waldo area. And so that's where we got the majority of our traction, people who live within a certain pretty condensed radius around the prospective area. And there was a huge on-flooding of support, but there were also definitely people that were like, I don't get it. This is dumb, I don't want it, right? So, and you have to expect that. The difference is just looking at the percentage for us, and the percentage of proponents versus opponents was extremely, offset. So I get it. I get that not everybody's gonna like it. I get that some people are gonna say this is dumb, I don't get it, right? You have to accept that. But overall, it seems to be pretty well received, and people are excited about the idea.
Question in the middle here.
Hi again. This is sort of my second question, kind of follow up. Have you looked at partnering with Uber or some of the other entities? Because I think that would be a great avenue, as well as when the streetcar continues expanding further south. I think you have a lot of advertising opportunities and everything else.
So are you talking about transportation to and from the park?
Yeah, just, if they needed that avenue and everything else, if they're going to the park, and besides taking their dogs there and everything else, if there are other people that go to the park for the recreational use.
Right. Yeah. When we were looking at prospective areas and considering population density and looking at spaces that might be available right off the existing streetcar or prospective streetcar lines, we were like, oh, well, that'll be great because it'll drive people. The downside is that you have to bring your dog with you, and dog isn't allowed in certain, I don't know if Uber allows dogs in the cars, but so, we quickly were like, well, maybe that's not the direction for us to look at.
That's an idea, though. Uber
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah. Oh,
One
yeah.
in the back.
You get
Uber
drunk
for
and
your
your dog
dog.
can't
Yeah,
drive the Uber.
I mean, if we're
you can't drive
drinking
home.
and we got our dogs, like I think we
Yeah.
got a business model.
That's
there.
a neat trick. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to teach my dog.
Luke's gonna shut down Casey.
Question back here behind the TV.
Well, if they expand the trolley to Waldo, will the dogs be able to ride the trolley? And be careful you don't get assessed $23,000 for just being near the trolley, if they can ride it. I mean, whether they can or not. No, my real question was, will Starbucks really make you an offer to buy you out when you're so successful and have chains all over the world?
Oh man, the dream, maybe. The way I like to read, and I like to be, as studied as I can be when I have time, and really the way we're trying to structure this is, one of my favorite books is The E-Myth, and building everything in a way that where you intend for the business to be, not where it is now. And we really want to put everything and document everything together in a franchisable way, so to where the revenue isn't limited to this location. So that's down the road, hopefully.
Question right here.
Back to what that gentleman was saying back there with the neighborhood acceptance. Will I be walking down the street and just hearing a bunch of dogs barking when I'm walking down, when I'm walking by the place, or is it going to be pretty confined inside as far as noise is concerned?
All right, so the hope would be to have it relatively confined inside. We do have budgeted to do sound mitigation even within the space itself to absorb the fact, if you've ever been in a facility that is concrete and you hear dogs barking, it is piercing. So the idea is to do that. We do have an outdoor patio projected for the space in which we want to have bay doors so we can have this indoor-outdoor flow when the weather is nice. In that time, you probably hear the dogs more than you would any other time. As far as permitting and zoning and being concerned about residential complaints, the building itself sits far enough off from any actual residential housing to where we really hope for that to not be an issue. But it's definitely something that if we get to that point, we'll have to address it.
One last comment from the panel before he jets back to San Francisco.
All right, so I guess one comment and then a couple of questions to leave you with. So first of all, on the Uber dog thing, I think there's actually something to that. By the way, so our dogs go to doggy daycare every Wednesday, and the reason it works so reliably is because they pick the dogs up and drop the dogs off.
Right.
And I guess the great thing about a service like that from like a revenue point of view is once you get something scheduled, there's predictable bookings, predictable revenue in that.
That's true.
So as I think about your business, think about how do you manage the cash flow over the first year? That'd be like the number one thing on my list. And so I guess one thing to leave you with is in terms of figuring that out. So I'd look at the unit economics on things. So for example, the membership. So how much does it cost you to support the membership?
It's on the
versus-
live stream. You don't have to take notes. It's okay.
Okay.
You can watch this later.
So your kind of core thing you're selling is the membership. I kind of get that. Intuitively, that might be relatively low margin because you've got kind of a lot of overhead and services and cleanup and everything else to support that membership. But something like coffee and beer might take a very little amount of sort of your incremental cost to provide, and they're very high margin sort of products. And so it may be that that's where all the profitability in your business comes from. So I don't know, but I would look at the different pieces of your business from that unit economics point of view, and I would let that guide you in that sort of first year and what you deliver. Because in my mind, it's going to be the cash flow that like either you survive because you're generating some cash from this thing and you can pay the bills, or it can be a great idea, but you don't have cash to support yourself, right? It's going.
Right.
And then and that's more of a comment. And then the last question, I guess, I'm just kind of curious, what kind of capital do you need up front, to like lease the building, fix the building up, just to get going? What kind of ballpark number do you think?
So ballpark, bootstrapping it, we're looking at around $150,000 up front. And I should be better prepared for that question, but that does include contingency, lease payments, insurance, all the expenses that we've been able to figure up for a certain amount of time.
And what's your plan to get the $150,000?
So our first plan was to try and do a small business loan. We've been meeting some challenges with that. This business model is very hard to collateralize. At the gym you have a lot of equipment. With other things, coffee shops, you have expensive equipment. With this, most of the cost is absorbed in construction cost. So it's hard to sell the paint that you put on the walls and rip the flooring up and get your money back out of it if you're the bank. So we've ran into some collateralizing challenges. We're really trying very strongly to hold on to that. We've been approached by people who are interested in investing, anywhere from silent partners all the way up to active partners, but we don't know how to handle that, and we don't even know if that's a road we want to go down to give up some of our equity or say in what's going on. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're trying to navigate those waters, and we need some help.
I got to cut us off here. We're reaching 9:30 really quickly. My 2 cents, Luke Wade, you guys need to talk. You have the exact same issues day to day. Secondly, what can we as a community, everybody in this room, do to help you?
I think just kind of what I've been saying over this is, well, first of all, tell your friends, and share us on social media and all those things. But outside of that is we need, at the point we're at right now in this analysis phase, not to sound crude, and I thought about saying this phrase, I'm just going to say it, right? So we need to shit or get off the pot, right? so we need help to determine whether this is viable outside of what we have to analyze it ourselves, and we need to either bite the bullet and move forward with it and really be serious, or we need to table it and maybe come back to it some other time or let somebody else do it. So we need get our contact information. If you're a mentor, you're interested in shepherding us, you have a lot of experience in the Kansas City business area, please reach out to us. Your help would be very appreciated and invaluable to us.
Thank you, Quentin.
Thank you, guys.
Well done. Good stuff. Absolutely. All right, so we got to get out of here kind of early today. There is a second presentation. Don't get up and walk out. Oh, that could have gone better. The TV okay? So we're going to kind of skip through the announcements pretty quickly. On the back of your announcement sheet, you will see the announcements. Other than that, we have 2 live announcements. First off, we got Kyle from KC SourceLink to kick us off.
Excellent. So all of Kansas City will be celebrating the end of the presidential election and entrepreneurship during Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is going to run here in Kansas City from November 10th all the way to November 22nd. So there are over 100 events tailored toward entrepreneurs going on. I recommend that you go to gewkc.org now to see that calendar and to start to sign up for events. And if you want to help spread the global entrepreneurship love, we at KC SourceLink are hosting a fun little Twitter photo contest. Our contest this week is which Kansas City entrepreneur inspires you? So if you want to take a picture of a friend, tell us a little bit on Twitter about why that person inspires you, and include the hashtags GEWKC and GEWKCGO, you'll be eligible to win an awesome Shop Local KC prize basket. So go to Twitter to find all those details, and definitely go to gewkc.org to start signing up for Global Entrepreneurship Week events now.
Okay, good morning, guys. My name is Blake Brock. I work for a company called Condado Group, and I'm going to make it short and sweet. We host a monthly networking event. Each month is at a different local company. This month, it is this Friday from 2 to 3:30 at the Nerdery. The event is called the Customer Experience Showcase. You can find it on Eventbrite, and I was just told they're going to tweet out the link to that link. We would love to see you guys. It's free. We bring in beer. We bring in wine. And we would love to see you all there. Thank you.
Yeah, Blake. Yeah, why not? I mean, we're a loving community. Give the guy a round of applause. Why not? And Kyle. Kyle deserves, that was for you too, Kyle. So the last thing that we got here, coming up on November 10th, we have the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards happening for UMKC. We have a couple special people that we're going to be honoring this year. Gary Fish, I'm sure everybody's heard of Gary Fish, Fishmon, and so on and so forth. Everybody's heard about the Ferraris. And on top of that, we're also going to be taking some time to thank Ewing Marion Kaufman from the Beyond kind of thing. Going to honor him as well. It should be a really, really powerful night. We also have a Student Entrepreneur of the Year that's going to get honored. I was lucky enough to win it in 2014. It is a huge night for that student, so if you can open your checkbook, come out, do what you need to do to get there, it makes a huge difference for Kansas City. That's about it. It's on November 10th, 7 p.m., Kansas City Convention Center. It's on the back at the bottom here if you want to take a look at more details. It should be a great night. And with that said, we are going to open it up to Compost Hero. Let's hear it.
All right, good morning. My name is Jeff Peterson, and I invented the Compost Hero. It's for composting leaves. So a little bit about me before we start. My first entrepreneurial experience was delivering ice in a Little Red Wagon when I was 8. I had a sister who I probably did more riding in the wagon than actually delivering any ice, but that was, my parents have been entrepreneurs for their entire lives. So we own Old Westport Spice and Trading Company, which you can find at Pride's in Old Westport. It is 20 years we've been doing it, and very successful spice company. So I am an industrial designer, or studied industrial design in school. So I have a background in product design in general, and obviously in marketing and packaging. So compost your fall leaves. It's fall, and we all know we have leaves piling up in the yard. And what do you want to do with your leaves? Most people put them in bags and throw them out. But if you didn't know, your leaves are actually one of the most valuable things you can do for your garden. So the typical way is to compost your leaves. This is one of the options. You stick it in, it's called a Lehigh bin, where you put the leaves in one, and then after time, you move the leaves to the next one, and after a time, you move the leaves to the third one, and by the third time, you have usable compost. That is a pain. So, to explain one of the things you can do with your leaves and why they're so valuable for your garden, there is a book called Teaming with Microbes. And this book is the science behind why leaves are good for your garden, your lawn, your soil, and just growing in general. And this is the Kansas City Public Library website. They have a brand new one. Looks very lovely. I did that, by the way. Okay, so Compost Hero. What compost does for your garden, it provides vital micronutrients. You can use it as mulch. When you put a 3-inch layer of compost on top of your garden, it prevents weeds, it retains moisture, reduces pathogens because there's organisms in the soil it's the soil food web, which we learn in Teaming with Microbes. Teaming with Microbes is about the soil food web. And compost also improves your soil or texture because the organisms in the soil eat the compost and eat the leaves, and that is what it increases the loam in your soil and makes better texture. It regulates soil temperature, so the roots of the plants have a more consistent soil temperature, and also compost will prevent erosion. And the Compost Hero is designed to support the natural anaerobic composting process so your leaf compost smells fresh and earthy. So when you're composting, what you want is a 4-to-1 ratio of browns to greens. So you want 4 parts browns, 1 part greens. And that increases the nitrogen with the carbon. So leaves are carbon, greens are nitrogen, and together that's what makes the composting process. So the Compost Hero, what it does is it's a tarp, it's a perforated tarp that you then fold up like a burrito. So you fold it one side, you flap the both sides together, and then surround it with the straps. secure it, and then you can turn it easily, because compost needs to be turned regularly to keep it from matting, to jostle all the ingredients, to make sure that the organisms continue to have an ample supply of food. So here are your current options for compost bins. They're all terrible. Do you really want these in your yard? Because that is just terrible. And they're expensive too. So a large plastic bin costs $300. This is the cheapest option, but this doesn't allow you to turn your compost at all. It just pile it in a bin and you're good to go. So gardening, if you don't know, gardening is good for you. It has been proven to reduce stress and improve health. Just 30 minutes a week can improve your health. And gardening as a child encourages students to eat more vegetables when they're older, which is a good thing. So my current goals is to, if you haven't seen my website, is to have more educational videos and content about gardening and compost, and show tangible results that the compost produced from the Compost Hero actually increases your yields in the garden. And doing that on community and social media. Going around the community, there's a lot of gardening, community gardening places that I can go to proselytize about the benefits of leaf compost. And one of the proponents of leaf compost is a guy named Mike McGrath, who is the host of You Bet Your Garden on WYYI. He is an expert, and this book is all about leaf compost and how people, he has a great video online as well about how you should be using leaf compost in your garden. There we are. That's what the Compost Hero does. Finished 30 seconds early.
All right, we're gonna go. There we go. Let's hear it. We'll go ahead and open it up to our expert panel for questions.
So, as a lawyer by training, one of the things that I'm curious about is whether there is defensible intellectual property here in your design for this. Could you get a patent around how to do this? Because I worry that someone could come in and kind of copy a similar concept.
I have a provisional patent currently, so yes, it is, and I'm currently up in the air as to whether to take the provisional patent to a non-provisional patent for the extra $5,000 to $10,000, depending on whether or not I can get provable sales. So I've had limited sales currently, and it's kind of a quirky product that I need to train people how to use, and we all know how difficult it is to get people to change their behavior in order to, you know, try a new product or do things in a different way. So yes, it is currently provisionally patented and hopefully soon to be fully patented.
So hi, this is Jeff. It sounds like you've got a really clever solution to a problem that a lot of people have. So I think you got a lot of good stuff to work with here. I guess my biggest question with consumer type products like this is distribution. Right? You think there's all these different ways you can distribute it. You can go through some other stores. You can go through Amazon. You can try go direct on your website and so forth. So what are your current thoughts on distribution?
Well, I would like to be able to get into independent retailers, and one of my friends is actually the buyer at Suburban Lawn and Garden, and Suburban Lawn and Garden is the largest, in our area, the largest lawn and garden, private lawn and garden retailer. She's the buyer there, and I've talked to her about it, and they've got probably 20 linear feet dedicated to compost bins, and I asked her how many they sold last year, and she said 3. So they're dedicating a huge amount of floor space to something that's generating no income. So hopefully I would like to get into retailers and retail the thing through private lawn and garden stores. And there is a thing called the IGC show, which is the Independent Garden Retailers. And it's in Chicago every year, so it's a $1 billion industry. And I would like to be able to get a booth there and get my product into the retail market.
And what's your current thinking on the price point?
It would run probably, if I get it into a retail and can get it produced well, $29 to $34 in a retail environment.
That would be the retail price,
Be
29.
the retail price, yes.
And what's it cost you?
It could possibly, I could bring it in at less than half that, so probably around $10 or $11. But it's going to require a lot of investment because it's sewn on, so there's a lot of manufacturing issues to address before I get it into any kind of mass production.
So I guess, I'm not a retail expert, but what I do know about retail channels is they can be really expensive.
Yeah.
So, think about like whatever price, let's say you want a 50% margin, so let's say you buy it for $10, you sell it to the retailers for 20, they're gonna need to sell it for 40.
Right.
And they may even want more along the lines, so it depends on. So I think the price point's gonna be a really key issue in here. And, think about from retailers' point of view. If they're making $20 when they sell that versus making, $200 for something that only sells once in a while, I mean, that's gonna be the kind of the competition.
Right.
One other thought too, which is, so assuming somebody buys this, and I can see them being a happy customer and so forth, do they need to rebuy it next year, or how long does this thing last?
It's reusable. So once you're done composting in the spring, you open it up, you take all of your compost out, use it as mulch in your garden, you fold the compost hero up and put it away.
Right.
And that way you can have 2 or 3 of them, and that way you don't have a bunch of them sitting around the yard all year long like the horrible compost bins. And then if you have 3 of them, let's say it's the middle of winter and you're composting all winter long, you've got your garden, if you're doing vegetable gardening or perennial gardening, you've got an open space anyway. You can leave the compostero in your perennial space, dump it all out in the spring when you're ready to start gardening, spread it all out, and fold them up and put them away.
So one thing to think about is, so the people that want to buy this are probably kind of scattered. They're kind of hard to find, right? So they show up in these retailers and that. So once you've got a customer and they're a happy customer, the question is, can you sell them something else, right? If they're
Yes. So thermometers, soil testing devices. There are other opportunities that I would like to address in the future. So yes.
Sorry, and just a kind of another sort of issue that kind of came to me in terms of the design is, one, could it be made out of compostable material so that you kind of have this full life cycle product? And then the other is, as a woman, one of the reasons that composting is kind of hard is like all of that moving something from one to another, it gets heavy actually as it decomposes. Could I do something like this, or am I
Yes,
too small for that?
It's easy to turn, so using leverage, since you're not, if you stand and you just pull, all you have to do is walk backwards. There's no, upper body lifting. It's just using your body weight to turn the thing over. And all you have to do is flip it to one side or the other, so you don't really need to do much more than that. Yeah, so it's simple. My buyer at Suburban is a woman, and she's given it a try, and she was perfectly fine with it. So dragging it across the yard, on the other hand, is a problem. So do it near where you want to keep it at, because it is a couple hundred pounds of material that you don't want to have to try to move across your yard.
All right, if you have any questions, raise your hand. My question would be, since it's around Halloween, have you thought about decorating them as body bags and selling them there?
There was the idea of having different kinds of tarps, where you could have a Halloween-themed tarp, or maybe something with daisies on it, that for people who don't want to look at an ugly green thing. I was also thinking of using it as furniture, because it is actually really comfortable to sit on, because it's basically a fluffy pile of warm material that you can use as a lounge.
I have 3 questions. I used to live in Prairie Village, and one year collected 50 of those manila paper-sized bags of leaves. How many of those would one need is my first question. In other words, how many of those bags will fit in one of those?
If you have mulched, if you run over all your leaves with your lawnmower and then pick them up in the bag, about 6 of those paper bags. So it's about 6 paper bags will fit into one of these. You can fit more, but it gets kind of unwieldy at that point.
Okay.
So there's a flexibility in there. So yes.
And you may have answered the question, but I didn't hear it. How long does it take cradle to grave to do a cycle of?
Composting generally takes, it's between 2 to 6 months, depending on how much nitrogen you put in it. The more nitrogen you put in it, the faster it'll go, because it'll heat up faster. and the organisms will consume.
So I mean, you got to add some green stuff. You want some green
You can
stuff
add,
in there?
yes, you can add either grass clippings, you can add blood meal, or you can add alfalfa meal, which you can buy at the supply store in a bag.
And then my last question is, okay, so I've got 70 bags, 7 per, so 10 of these. I assume they got to be stored somewhere on the dirt where you're not hurting your grass or in the driveway or
Well,
something
if
like
you're
that.
gardening, you can put them, especially if you're doing perennial gardening, you put them in your perennial garden.
Yeah.
Or you can store them in some, against the house somewhere in an obscure place of some sort.
Question back here to your right.
What's the length and the width of this when it's full?
It's a 10 by 10 square tarp.
Okay, and then I heard you say you can add grass clippings. Can you add grass clippings throughout the entire summer and use that as mulch as well?
Grass clippings will actually become anaerobic fairly quickly, so if you put nothing but greens in, it will begin to stink. That'll happen anywhere you pile grass clippings. If you have ever piled up a pile of grass clippings and stuck your hand in it, it's a couple hundred degrees in there. They're not particularly good for using in the garden necessarily, because what you want is to increase the carbon as well as the nitrogen in your soil, and the organisms are eating the carbon as well as the nitrogen in the food process, in the soil food web. So it's part of the cycle of the soil food web, is you need to have that carbon in there as well. So you need to compost your leaves. Your grass clippings are an amendment to your leaves, but not necessarily something you want to focus on.
Over here to your left.
Yes.
So this is an interesting idea. However, probably your biggest obstacle is to make it more mass market, because right now, and I can call myself one of these, even though I don't have a garden now, but you're going to appeal mostly to what I call the fad gardeners or the nutty gardeners. Yeah. Most people want to just rake the leaves, throw them in the damn bags, and get rid of them. Yeah. They want them disappeared. And so you're going to have to convince people about the benefits. So I have a few comments. I think you are on the right track about doing the education. I think that's a really important part. And one of my comments here, just thinking about the way recycling has gone in Kansas City, is maybe you are aiming a little too low by just going for retail outlets. I think you need to spread out much more. And one of those areas might be to convince the people who haul away your leaves, who are usually the municipalities, that maybe they should be making an offer of some kind, perhaps buying these or selling them at a subsidized rate to homeowners.
Municipalities actually at times give away composters, and I know that it's been done in Connecticut and it's been done elsewhere. So much like they give away the recycling bin, they will give away a composter. So yes, I would like to target municipalities and say, and I discussed this with the guy at the extension office for K-State in Johnson County, and he said that all of the stuff that Deffenbaugh collects, they take and they put in a big pile, they let it compost, and then they shove it back into the landfill. So it's just being wasted. Yeah, and it's just taking up landfill space. So it is the best thing you can do is not throw all of your leaves into the compost or into the waste stream and actually compost them. And if you compost it well enough, you can actually spread it on your lawn. So it will actually improve your lawn. After 6 months in the spring, just spread it out an inch thick over your entire lawn, and it will help your lawn. So it's not, you don't just have to use it on a perennial garden or vegetables. You could actually use it in many different situations. So yes, I would like to focus on municipalities as well.
Question in the back in the middle here.
I didn't hear the price of your bag. Do you have a set price on it yet?
$34 is
34.
what I think I have currently online.
And the other thing I was thinking, as far as the bag itself, have you considered putting any branding on the bag, a
Yes.
logo?
I have a hang tag currently, so you can write on when, put your recipe on it, how much you included, how many greens and how many browns, and it's just a plastic luggage tag. So yeah, and I would like to get some sort of branding directly on, subtle branding, so you don't have to look at it when it's sitting in your yard all winter long, but when you walk up to it, you'll be able to see some subtle branding, yes.
Well, and the other thing that came to mind was when you were talking about the alfalfas, maybe either packaging something or partnering with the people that do that, or
Yes.
and also targeting maybe these florists, or not florists, but nurseries that I don't know. I have a name for you. I'll give to you.
Okay.
Of a
Yeah, I was
prominent
considering
nursery.
one of the things you can do is supplement with blood meal, which is almost pure nitrogen. So if you have leaves and then sprinkle some blood meal on it, you'll increase the amount of nitrogen, and it will actually compost faster. So you could package, Compost Hero blood meal designed specifically for composting, because blood meal is one of the things you would use as a nitrogen source, an organic nitrogen source on your vegetables, which is just pure nitrogen. There's no supplemental nutrients involved with it. So yes.
Over here to your left.
Huh?
Well, let's say I have a 20 by 20 garden. How many of these bags would I need in order to make enough compost?
For a 3-inch thick garden, this makes about an 8 by 8 to a 10 by 10, enough covered 3 inches thick, depending on how much leaves you get actually into the Compost Hero itself. So a 10 by 10 at 3 inches thick.
Question, Luke? Question in the back here?
All right, sorry. I know you said that it's reusable. Have you actually left it out in a KC winter for snow, rain, all the elements? I just think it'd have to be a pretty thick tarp.
The thicker the tarp, obviously, the longer it's going to last. But yes, it's sat out. This will be my third year doing it, and they hold up just fine. They mostly when plastics break down, they do so because of UV rays. So that's what's more going to degrade the plastic than anything else.
Right here.
Couple of thoughts or questions. Is moisture required for breaking down leaves?
Yes.
And if so,
So
okay.
one of the things I probably didn't show in here, but yes, it's in the instructions. First, you pile your leaves up in a huge pile, and then you get your rake out, you water your leaves, you toss it until it's about as moist as a wet salad, or a tossed salad kind of moisture level. So you don't want it too wet, and you don't want it too dry, because if it gets too wet, it'll go anaerobic. And you want it just moist enough that a lot of the organisms that do the decomposting are actually fungus. Mm-hmm. They're not, like bacteria and stuff. So a lot of the fungus doesn't take a lot of moisture to actually break down.
Okay.
So yes.
And then my other thought is that the big ugly bins are more conducive to food scraps, vegetable scraps, composting them, but leaves are an important part of that formula. So rather than competing directly with those bins, maybe you could position this as complementing that.
Yes. So
a way to store the leaves so that you can periodically put them in the bins.
Yes, exactly.
I had a quick question. So do all these instructions, everything you're telling, come with the bag? Like, hey, if you put this together in October and you don't add anything to it, you can pull it out in March? Or
that'll all be online. There's the instructions on the thing. I would like to give a booklet as well. I'm working on writing an entire book on leaf composting, but that's going to take me getting a lot more experience and learning a lot more about the actual science behind leaf composting. So.
Well, I think it's important for somebody like me who's the worst lawn care person alive. If I knew that I could do this and put it on my lawn and not have to worry about it, I think I would buy it just for that.
Yeah.
Wait, Clint, do you want to finish up here in front?
So just kind of, this is a gut reaction. I think your price point's too low. Right. So if you're selling to gardening enthusiasts, right, and they're spending, I would imagine, hundreds of dollars for these other kinds of, composting, I think you could make the argument that this is potentially even a better solution. And so if your comparison is $300 for this big ugly thing, I think you could charge $99 for this. And if you want to break into a market of not the gardening enthusiast but a broader market, maybe that's even a role for like a different product. So you got a $34 product that's smaller, and then you've got the premium one for gardening enthusiasts. Because I think if you could charge $99 for this, that kind of margin is going to make it a lot easier to build your business.
Yeah.
So we are needing to wrap up.
Okay.
If you guys have any other questions, the presenters will be over here once we get done. But what can we as a community do to help you?
Feedback. It's all the things that I can't see, all my missed opportunities and blind spots. I've been this has been in my head for a while, and this is how it's come out, and then there's just things that, you know, I can't see about the brand and about the process in general, what, you know, it being explained marginally, like, how much do you not get about leaf composting, and what do I need to explain better?
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation today, Jeff.
Thank you.
So real quick, Kaufman Fellows actually has a meeting in here at 10:30, so we're going to have to get out of this room kind of quickly this morning. For all of you drinking enthusiasts, next week we have Draft Pack and Hex Cup presenting, so we hope to see you here back next week. Thank you.